Welcome to another episode of Fill in the Blank podcast. I'm here with Evan.
Oh, hold on. Hold on a sec.
What you got there?
Let me open this candy. Hold on. let me take a bite of this candy. Ah! 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 I'm bleeding. Ah! There's a needle in this.
Good God.
Ah!
Well, Evan just gave light to what our next topic is.
Shit!
Poison candy myths. Now, what comes to your mind when I say poison candy myths? Have you ever heard of a poison? Obviously Halloween, but have you ever heard of a poison candy myth? Like this thing, poison candy. How many times have your parents told you after Halloween they have to inspect your candy for razor blades or poison?
Funnily enough, they always did until I did research on it, and I was like, you know that's, like, fake, right? And it, like, never happens, basically, and they're like, huh, so they stopped caring.
Well, I mean, some of the best candy was sometimes on the street. Some kid dropped it out of their bag or something. Nothing like that street candy.
It's the best.
Yeah, especially when you basically just walk across, you don't have to go up to anybody's house and talk to them. Especially those savages that just leave the bowl out in front and say, please take one. It's are you serious?
God, they deserve to get the whole bowl taken.
Sorry, bruh. If you're poisoning me, I'm dying by chocolate. So what was your favorite type of Halloween candy?
Honestly, I was a big Swedish Fish guy, now that I see it on there. But
that stuff gets stuck in your teeth for hours. My grandpa taught me you eat that at the movie theaters. They go through half a box and still be able to save it once you get done with the movie.
Yeah, Swedish Fish are fucking great. Reese's are awesome.
Crunch bars were pretty good.
Crunches are popular for Halloween candy. And Butterfingers.
Which is weird because of how many people have nut allergies.
I guess, but parents will sort that shit out.
Yeah.
Because it's peanut butter and peanuts are the best.
I think every child has succumbed to the problem of our parents digging through our candy before we can get to it, just to inspect it and take all the good pieces for themselves.
Like I said, once upon a time, but that was one of the first times logic and reason actually benefited me in my life when I convinced them that was bullshit.
I think that's the whole reason I want a kid, is just so I can get candy on.
Steal their
Instead
candy.
of buying a bag, I'm like, this is a good way of getting exercise and also treating yourself afterwards. Well, some of the poison candy myths are urban legends about malevolent strangers hiding poisons or sharp objects such as razor blades, needles, or broken glass in candy, and distributing the candy in order to harm random children, especially during Halloween trick-or-treating. These stories serve as modern cautionary tales to children and parents and repeat two themes that are common in urban legends: danger to children and contamination of food. No cases of strangers killing or permanently injuring children this way have been proven. Commonly, the story appears in the media when a young child dies suddenly after Halloween. Medical investigations into the actual cause of death have always shown that these children did not die from eating candy given to them by strangers. However, in rare cases, adult family members have spread this story in an effort to cover up murder or accidental deaths. In other incidents, a child who has been told about poison candy places a dangerous object or substance in a pile of candy and pretends that it was the work of a stranger. This behavior is called the copycat effect. Folklore scholars and law enforcement experts say that the story that strangers put poison into candy and give that candy to trick-or-treating children has been thoroughly debunked. Worries that candy from strangers might be poison has led to a rise of alternative events to trick-or-treating, such as events held at Christian churches, police and fire stations, community centers, and retail stores that are more willing to accept that group, like, hey, come down here, we give your kids some candy, you get to hang out, have a little bit of a party, you don't have to worry about going out and trick-or-treating and some kid poisoning or some guy poisoning your kid. That takes the whole fun out of Halloween.
Yeah.
What was the best part about Halloween? You got that bag of candy at the end. After all your hard work, you can sit down at the kitchen table, sort it out, and eat the stuff, and then you get to live off that candy for weeks.
See, I never got the perfect, peak Halloween experience where you and your friends run off by yourselves. and just
you
go
just stuck around with your
myself.
parents. And your
Yeah,
family.
I always went with the parents.
Honestly, I look back now at those times, and I think that was probably the funnest times. Because a lot of times with my friends, everyone's running and not waiting for each other. It's like, if you think about it, even if you didn't end up going home with a lot of amount of candy, your parents would have bought you some anyway. And at the same time, it's like, you got to talk. And now that I look back on that and, like, kind of being older, I kind of wish I appreciated that a little bit more. Because those are good bonding experiences. I remember so many times walking in through my small town and, just walking down the streets with my family. Like, how many times are people able to do that now with their kids? You don't feel safe on the streets usually anymore. And a lot of the times it's like, it's just we're all being so distant from each other now. People have to work multiple jobs to afford the world we live in, and it's like, it's just not in their cards anymore to be able to take their kid out Halloween or trick-or-treating.
Honestly, same thing here. Like, I wish, like, honestly, reliving my entire childhood and appreciating everything for what it was would be, like, pretty excellent.
We wanted to grow up so bad, and then now you realize when you're 30-something years old, you can't really show up with a Halloween mask to some stranger's front door and ask for candy. They're like, get out of here! Unless you suffer some type of disorder or something.
Like, I try and find that, because I still love Halloween, because I get to, dress up my house and make it look spooky and stuff. And I do that even though, like, no one comes trick-or-treating, because I just like the atmosphere. I try and keep that magic alive.
I just found a good
way. In what I do in my life, and, I try and keep my life from slipping into the mundane that a lot of people
boring lifestyle.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the history of this. Claims that candy was poisoned or adulterated gained general credence during the Industrial Revolution, when food production moved out of the home or local area, where it was made in familiar ways by known and trusted people, to strangers using unknown ingredients and unfamiliar machines and processes. Some doctors publicly claimed that they were treating children poisoned by candy every day. If a child became ill and had eaten candy, the candy was widely assumed to be the cause. However, no case of illness or death were ever substantiated. Now, is that just a kid eating way too much candy getting a tummy ache?
Well, back in the Industrial Revolution, a kid can't afford that much fucking candy. So he probably just got sick from
eating too much,
being in a dirty-ass environment in the Industrial Revolution. They're like, yeah, it was candy, not my dirty, crusty-ass home.
Well, during the 1890s and the 1900s, the U.S. Bureau of Chemistry and other state agencies tested hundreds of kinds of candy and found no evidence of poisons or adulteration. These tests revealed that inexpensive glucose from corn syrup was in common cases for cheap candies, that some candies contained trace amounts of copper from uncoated copper cooking pans, and that coal tar dyes were being used for coloring. But there was no evidence of many types of poison, industrial waste, garbage, or other adulterants alleged to be present.
Yeah, none of that would be dangerous.
Yeah, but back then, if they're making how many times do you have a lot of different dyes in these types of candies? I mean, obviously too much of anything is bad, so it's hard to think a kid that eats a whole trash bag of Halloween candies, like...
Just the other week,
gonna be functioning, right?
A woman was, like, a little girl had, like, a bag of chips or something, and she was like... The mom was like, no, you can't have that. That has red in it. And I'm like...
What happened to the world? How do we get allergic to that? Like, when the peanut allergy spread, that's when everyone started freaking out.
See, that parent definitely read, like, an article off of Facebook that was like, red 87 dye gives you cancer. And it's like, you're sick.
I'm waiting for Halloween. Halloween's going to end up being illegal. Like, people are going to protest, like, that strangers shouldn't be giving out candy and that parents should just buy them a bag of candy. It's like, you're going to take that away from us, like, illegal. The tradition?
I think it's too... See, I think because at the ground level, the rational people are like, yeah, there's not really much dangerous about it. So I don't think it'll ever be illegal. But they might enforce so many stupid regulations that it won't be fun anymore.
That's the same thing.
Basically,
that's the same thing the South said, and now they can't use the Confederate flag anymore. So, Eventually, the claims that children were being sickened by candy were put down to indigestion due to overeating, or to other causes including food poisoning due to improper cooking, hygiene, or storage of meat and other foods. So, some social causes. The prevalence and persistence of these myths during the 1960s and 1970s, a time of social upheaval, greater racial integration, and improved status for women, reflected social questions about who was trustworthy. Because society was struggling with questions about whether to trust neighbors in newly integrated neighborhoods or young women who were publicly rejecting the subservient motherhood focused roles previously assigned to women, these stories about unidentifiable neighbors allegedly harming random, innocent children during an event intended to bring happiness to these children caught and retained the public imagination in a way that accurate stories about a judgmental neighbor, an abusive parent, or an adult carelessly leaving harmful chemicals where children can reach them.
That's definitely See, that's one thing, because as much as I lament the passing of Halloween, I don't think it's possible to have the or at least it's really difficult to have that classic Halloween experience where you go to your neighbor's house and who your neighbors are and who's probably gonna give you shitty candy and who's not, and having a actual community based experience on Halloween night.
We're not going to go to the creepy old man that yells at you to get off the lawn. You're not going to go to his house for candy. You know what I mean? It's like that whole who you're open to. Now in the 1960s and
nowadays
70s,
that cranky old man just no one talks to him ever.
Yeah, that's why he's cranky. Well, in the 1960s and 70s, they're dealing with more racial integration. So being kind of nervous that colored people are moving into your neighborhood or different ethnicities are moving into your neighborhood. We would experience that now with Muslims.
Yeah.
If different types of people from Iraq and all this stuff started coming over here, we probably wouldn't let our kids go over there to get candy, not knowing what they're serving or not knowing what could be in the candy. They're just people just like us. Not all people are bad. There are plenty of white people out in the world that are dangerous.
Extravagant minority of people are bad.
Yeah.
Most people are good.
Surprisingly, if strangers are giving out candy and they're not poisoning your kids, the world seems pretty okay. Who's gonna freaking poison a milk dud? You are a savage if you poison a milk dud.
See, I say literally no one. Just you say literally someone has done that in the past. Effectively, nobody does that. So few people ever do that it's even a thing to worry about. It'd be like worrying about getting struck by lightning.
Well, some of the effects of this. Due to their fears, parents and communities restricted trick-or-treating and developed alternative safe events such as trunk or treat events held at Christian churches. This collective fear also served as the impetus for the safe trick-or-treating offered by many local malls. This story also promoted the sale of individually wrapped brand-name candies and discouraged people from giving homemade treats to children. How many times have you ever rolled up to somebody's house and they had a homemade thing that they made for you instead of a candy?
That happened a couple times. I always liked that.
Yeah, that was really weird, like a cookie.
That's something I would eat there. Or on the way to the next house.
Yeah, to make sure if you die, it's you're in the neighborhood still. So everybody knows it's that lady that baked those cookies they were actually made with.
Yeah, those are usually my favorite. I remember, actually, now that you bring it up, I remember a specific, salty caramel pretzel, kind of chocolatey concoction or something that someone made, and that was sick.
If anything, those are the ones the parents should be worried about.
Yeah,
because that's a baked treat. It's you don't know if that person's good or not. Hopefully they do a lot of involvement in the community where they've already displayed a type of reputation that's good standing. Yeah. You don't know, that person could just snap one day and decide to start cooking razor blades and stuff.
Honestly,
or accidentally drop something into the thing that could accidentally poison a kid.
If you're doing that, I'm not worried as much for kids eating it as the person trying to be nice and doing something special for Halloween, getting
Dude, you know what we should
getting
do this,
shit for it.
You know what we should do this Halloween?
What?
We should bake cookies and put paprika in the cookies, so everyone's or ghost pepper, and start just hurting everybody.
We got to do something.
Let's start the poison candy myth.
We gotta do a Halloween podcast this Halloween.
I'm down.
This is basically the Halloween podcast.
We needed to do a July 4th podcast.
Oh, God.
Blow off some fireworks on Mike.
We could do a video for that.
Well, when they say trunk or treat, basically people just filled up their automobiles and stuff and packed their trunks with all these decorations and treats for kids to kind of come out of. Now, we've known not to accept candy from strangers in a white van. Why are we accepting them out of the trunks of cars?
Well, I think in an event like that, it's more...
It's an event. It's Michael Jackson had events all the time. Well, let's talk about the candy tapering myth. Development of the modern candy tapering myth. Several events in the late 20th century fostered the modern-day candy tampering myth. In 1959, a California dentist, William Shine, gave candy-coated laxative pills to trick-or-treaters. He was charged with outrage of public decency and unlawful dispensing of drugs. That is funny, man.
What did he do?
He gave laxatives.
Oh, my God.
Candy-coated laxatives. I'm tired of these kids stepping on my lawn. It's California grass. I'm trying to grow it, not smoke it. And they keep stepping on my... So you decided to put laxative in these candy things. And next thing you know, kids are walking down the street.
Imagine caring at all about grass.
Dude, that is funny. I don't care. I don't even see that as bad. That's funny.
It's hilarious.
In 1964, a disgruntled Long Island, New York woman gave out packages of inedible objects to children who she believed were too old to be trick-or-treating. This package contained items such as steel wool dog biscuits and ant buttons, which were clearly labeled with the word poison. Though nobody was injured, she was prosecuted and pleaded guilty to endangering children. The same year saw media reports of lye-filled bubblegum being handed out to Detroit and rat poison being given in Philadelphia, although these media reports were never substantiated to be actual events. You don't have to give the older kids the candy. There's no need to put steel wool in it.
You can just be like, fuck off.
Imagine you bite into a steel wool.
Well, I think the whole thing was she was trying to be, like, cheeky about it.
She was like, straight up poisoning kids. It was candy that had steel wool in it.
I thought she said it was in a bag labeled poison.
No.
Oh, shit.
This article claimed that those Halloween goodies that children collect this weekend on their rounds of trick-or-treat may bring them horror than happiness, and provided specific examples of potential tamperings. Reports and copycat incidents peaked shortly after the Chicago Tylenol murders, which were first reported 1 month before Halloween in 1982. This incident involved a murderer who added poison to a few bottles of over-the-counter medication after the medication had been delivered to the stores. So let's talk about debunking the myths. Joel Best, a sociologist at the University of Delaware, specializes in the scholarly study of candy tampering legends. He collected newspaper reports from 1958 to 1983 in search of evidence of candy tampering. Fewer than 90 instances might have qualified as actual candy tampering ways. In none of these cases does he attribute the events to random attempts to harm children at the Halloween holiday. Instead, most cases where attempts by adults to gain financial compensation are far more commonly by children to get attention. Best found 5 child deaths that were initially thought by local authorities to be caused by homicidal strangers, but none of those were sustained by investigation. Fabrications by children are particularly common with this myth. Children sometimes copy or act out the stories about tampered candy that they overhear by adding pins to or pouring household cleaners on their own candy and then reporting the now unsafe candy to their parents. In these instances, the children have not been harmed. They know that the dangerous item is present and that it would be unsafe to eat the candy. Far more prevalent during the same period were reports of vandalism, racist incidents, or children being injured in pedestrian vehicle collisions on Halloween.
So think about, like...
It's the act of seeking attention.
Think about actually sitting down and poisoning candy to give to children. Like, actually sit down and think about how likely you are to do that.
Hey, man. Sometimes you gotta poison a couple kids when they piss you off.
Exactly.
You're a teacher. You give candy out to your class. Oh, my God. I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole. That's going to start some teacher who listens to this podcast like, I know how to get little Jimmy who never sits down in his seat correctly. Tired of giving him punishments of losing his recess. I'd rather just poison his lemon heads.
Just give him like Adderall.
Good God. The real poison candy is what we experience when elderly people pull out that butterscotch out of their pocket that's been there for 80,000 years and it's covered in hair. If you eat that, there's no way you're not going to the hospital.
You're a sick fuck.
Jesus. Misattributed poisoning deaths. The death of 5 children were initially blamed on stranger poisoning. However, none of these claims were sustained upon investigation. In 1970, Kevin Tosin, a 5-year-old boy from the Detroit area, found and ate heroin in his uncle's stash. The boy died following a 4-day coma. The family attempted to protect the uncle by claiming the drug had been sprinkled in the child's Halloween candy. In 1978, Patrick Widerhold, a 2-year-old boy from Flint, Michigan, died after eating Halloween candy. However, toxicology tests found no evidence of poison and the death was determined to be due to natural causes. In 1990, Ariel Katz, a 7-year-old girl in Santa Monica, California, died while trick-or-treating. Early press reports blamed poison candy despite her parents telling the police that she had previously been diagnosed with a serious medical condition, an enlarged heart, which was the actual cause of her death. In 2001, a 4-year-old girl in Vancouver, British Columbia, died after eating some Halloween candy. However, there was no evidence of poison candy and she actually died of streptococcus infection. In a 1974 case, an 8-year-old boy from Deer Park, Texas, died after eating a cyanide-laced package of pixie sticks. A subsequent police investigation eventually determined that the poison candy had been planted in his trick-or-treat pile by the boy's father, Ronald Clark O'Brien, who also gave out poison candy to other children in an attempt to cover up the murder. Though no other children consumed the poison treats, the murderer, who wanted to claim life insurance money, was executed in 1984. In this case, the distribution of poison candy is true, but no children other than the intended victim were harmed. That's the one popular case I actually knew about this myth, was the guy the dad that poisoned his kid, and then also tried to poison other kids in the neighborhood with pixie sticks. It's also the reason why when I was walking down the street one Halloween, I found a giant-ass pixie stick on the ground and my mom wouldn't let me pick it up because of that incident right there. That's why it's stuck in my mind so heavily.
God.
Imagine poisoning your own kid for life insurance money.
There's so many things wrong with that like...
Poisoning your own kid for life insurance money. And not even doing that, poisoning a pixie stick.
See, I just find it hard to think about... I find it hard to think about anyone actually dying, let alone a little kid. Like, Jesus. Little kids come into my fucking shop every day and get, like, toys and stuff. Like, that shit. Like, death should be farthest from children.
Makes you think next time if you go to the movie theater. Who runs that movie theater? And where are you getting your box of candy from? Is that Dollar Tree really... $1 for a box of candy cheaper than the $3.95 you pay for them at the movie theaters?
And God, your mom on the road, like, God, imagine. That's the worst shit. Because when you're, God, when you're that young, you can instinctively know that way of thinking is obviously false.
Yeah.
But you can't, like,
you can't
it
anyway,
convince
dude.
An adult.
You don't believe it anyway. And even if the adult firmly believes that poison candy myth is real, you're sitting there like, okay, yeah, and they turn their back and then you eat the Twix anyway. Like, she tells you not to, you do it anyway. It's the whole idea of that children just don't care when it comes to candy, I think, too.
Children don't care when it comes to candy.
I don't care when it comes to candy.
Yeah.
You tell me a Three Musketeers poison. If I'm dying, I'm trying, and I'm eating that Three Musketeers.
Like... Because obviously, if you're going to put cyanide in candy, you're not going to... Like, pixie sticks aren't the only option. It's just as likely to put cyanide in, like, a Twix as it is to put cyanide in a pixie stick. Like...
How hard is it taking a needle and injecting it into something and then squeezing out, like, dish or bleach into some type of candy?
Bleach is, like... I think the human body can handle a certain amount of both of those. But, like...
I don't know, dude. Bleach tears up the insides, dude.
It might. You're
not even allowed to get that on your skin. If you get that on your skin, it stains your skin. Imagine staining the inside of your stomach.
See, I know it's not, like, terrible to get bleach on your skin. It's just irritating.
The only candy that's terrible to have is black licorice. If you like that, you're disgusting. I'm sorry.
Black licorice is...
It's definitely...
I don't know, it's definitely something I've grown to enjoy
What?
as an older boy.
What about you prefer that over an almond joy?
No. See, I don't know, because black licorice isn't like a conventionally tasty candy. I don't want black licorice when I'm in the mood for wanting like Halloween candy. So I totally agree with you there. Holy shit.
Willy Wonka is the true psycho killer. He could have killed so many. Actually, he did kill people. No, he changed those lives of those children forever, and the parents.
Yeah, that one girl's now a blueberry.
The one kid's made of chocolate. The one kid's stretched out. All because they didn't listen.
Oh, that one kid might have actually died.
Yeah, he was eating himself for a little while there. By 1985, the media had driven the hysteria about candy poisonings to such a point that an ABC News/Washington Post poll that found that 60% of parents feared that their children would be injured or killed because of Halloween candy sabotage. Advice columnists entered the fray during the 1980s and 1990s with both Ask Ann Landers and Dear Abby warning parents of the horrors of candy tampering. This is by Ann Landers in 1995. In recent years, there have been reports of people with twisted minds putting razor blades and poison in taffy apples and Halloween candy. It is no longer safe to let your child eat treats that come from strangers. And this is from Dear Abby in 1983. Somebody's child will become violently ill or die after eating poisoned candy or an apple containing a razor blade. So some of the genuine candy tampering cases. Almost all tampering cases at a rate of 1 or 2 per year involve a friend or family member, usually as a prank. Almost all those involve sharp objects rather than poisoning. 3/4 of them resulted in no injuries, and the rest result only in minor injuries. No child has ever been killed by eating Halloween candy from a stranger.
Well, yeah, because...
I have accidentally eaten a laxative because it looked like a Hershey's chocolate. I swear to you.
Well, that's what they look like, because they flavor them like chocolate.
No, this thing, like, you know how the Hershey's are broken up into, like, you can break it into 16 little pieces?
Yeah.
8 on top, 8 on the bottom. This is how the laxative went. It just didn't say Hershey's on it. My buddy gave it to me. He's like, it's chocolate. I'm like, all right. You're only supposed to take 2 of the little squares to produce going to the bathroom for like 6 hours. I ate the whole freaking thing, dude. 16 doses of laxative.
They make it look like chocolate,
I thought
right?
I was going to die.
They literally make it into chocolate.
It tastes like chalk, though, but I kept eating it.
It tastes like son of a bitch.
I didn't stop.
You're a villain.
I was believing that it was...
You're a chocolate villain.
I'm a chocolate victim. Poison candy myths. So these are some of the cases I actually looked up. Despite what all warnings may lead parents to believe, there's never been a documented case of stranger poisoning kids' Halloween candy. Every October for at least 60 years, phantom portraits of the evil Halloween humbug have been passed on by the media and word of mouth. Parents hear accounts of children dying, clutch their fists to their chests, and issue mandates about not eating a single bite of sugar until all candy has been thoroughly inspected, preferably by a magnifying glass. How do you tell if a candy's been poisoned? By inspecting the wrapper and stuff.
I guess,
Check if it's, like, open a little bit.
Check if it's open or if there are any pinholes.
How hard is it going to be? I guess with a magnifying glass.
That's the magnifying glass shit.
But the evening sweets fun is likely being needlessly spoiled. Researchers such as Joel Best of the University of Delaware followed up the nearly 100 stories of candy contamination and found that such claims have almost turned out to be all tall tales, often told by the children themselves. Best publicized in a book by the University of Chicago Press, 1993, threatened children rhetoric and concern about child victims. It is really a myth that every October strangers are getting ready to poison the candy, said Aaron Carroll, a professor of pediatrics at Indiana University and co-author of Don't Swallow Your Gum, Myths, Half-Truths, and Outright Lies About Your Body and Health, St. Martin's Griffin, 2009. As for all warnings, there are to some extent, fear-mongering, Carroll told Live Science. There's been exactly one documented case of a child being directly poisoned by Halloween, and that's of the dad that poisoned his kid. In another case, a 5-year-old boy decided to try his uncle's heroin and got it mixed up. What about razor blades lurking within nougat, pins in chocolate, or syringes? Nope, nope, and nope. So parents probably can stop inspecting every shiny wrapper for tampering and instead worry about something worthwhile. The National Safety Council reports that children are 4 times more likely to be killed by a car on Halloween than other day of the year. because there's so many in the street.
Yeah.
You know, Christmas, not everyone's out in the street enjoying everything. They're doing other stuff. So
the best one is Berlin does it really well. They just block off the main road.
Yeah.
That's like great.
Give them a safe area to work in.
I take my little brother trick or treating there, and
You're not going to Fox Chapel to get the giant Hershey bar at that one mansion.
You
You gotta go to the rich neighborhoods, bro.
Fox Chapel is near that, isn't it?
Get caviar sometimes.
Oh no, Fox Chapel's by Ocean City Elementary, right?
Yeah.
Shit, yeah. I don't think I've ever been there.
Nice.
I always went to I think it's 15th Street. There's like a nice long stretch of road with some nice houses that me and that's where I always went to when I was little.
What's your idea on the poison candy myth? Fact, fiction?
Oh,
obviously it's proved as fiction, but
obviously fiction.
Do you believe that someone's gonna go out of their way to poison candy, though?
No, not effectively. No, at least. I mean, the statement, no child has ever died from being poisoned by candy given to them by a stranger, holds a lot of weight.
You know who I think is actually going to poison candy, if there is going to be anybody? The savage that gives out celery as candy.
Oh, God.
You're getting your house TP'd and egged, bro.
Yeah, dude.
You lace my candy with heroin, I'm coming back for more than I'm TP'ing your house.
You lace my candy with celery, I'm going to burn your house down.
Unless peanut butter's not on it, I don't want it.
Peanut butter and celery is actually fucking awesome.
Well, thanks for this episode of Fill in the Blank, Evan, and thank you for bringing us some nice little treats to snack on. You want to finish the rest of your Twix bar or whatever you brought?
Boo, 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 boo.
Okay. Well, I don't know what that happened to do with candy, but it definitely has something to do with Halloween. Thanks for listening to this episode of Fill in the Blank, and stay tuned for the next episode.